Welcome to Sharp Football Analysis. Today, Rich and I are going to discuss TreVeyon Henderson, Bryce Young, and the most interesting matchups for Week 12. So make sure you stick around. Welcome to Sharp Football Analysis. Rich and I are here to get you ready for Week 12 of the fantasy football season. Continues to just fly by this fantasy football season. But before we do that, I want to let you know about a great offer. If you've been waiting to join us this season, we have a huge sale for you to get on board today. It has been a great season for our clients. $100 bettors have been following our betting recommendations since the start of the year, have won over $6,000. Historically, our bets get stronger as the year goes on, as we get deeper into the season. So you want to be on board as we close out the year. Use coupon code SAVE65 to take 65% off our rest of season all access or NFL Plus packages. That's SAVE65 for 65% off rest of season all access or NFL Plus. With both of those packages, you actually get access to Rich's worksheets, his fantasy rankings, everything you need for fantasy football. So really a great deal for you. All right, let's get to it. Get to the episode today, previewing Week 12. Obviously, we're going to do that with the one, the only Rich Hribar. How you doing, Rich?
We're doing good. You said this is the season gets here, but this is where you're tested. You always think it flies by, and then once Thanksgiving comes, you're like, then it's like, is this feeling long? Like it's like it's like that point of the year.
I believe I maybe even said this before on this podcast. It's about this very same topic. But when I was a teacher, February was always that point. Like you'd get to February and it'd be the doldrums, right? You'd just be floating in the middle of the Atlantic, like not sure how you were going to get home. But it is always funny how you hit those points. And like, yeah, we do say, hey, we're flying by, but like Week 12 isn't even finished yet. We got 18. So like, we're not even really that far. I do the injured reserve tracker over at the website, sharpfootballanalysis.com. Great website. You should go check it out. And like, I keep getting to the point where I'm thinking, all right, well, this guy's going on injured reserve. He must be done for the season. And I count it out on my hands. I always have to count it out on my fingers. I'm like, oh no, he could be back Week 16. Like that's how close we are still to the beginning of the season, or I guess not close to the end of the season. So it's been interesting. One of the reasons why it might seem like things are dragging right now is because the offenses are just awful. We talked about that at the beginning of the podcast last week. And then, as I always say, you have this State of the Union, the State of the NFL address that you put in the kind of hub for our worksheets over at Sharp Football Analysis, which I would suggest you go and check out. And it was more of the same in Week 11, just continuing for these offenses to struggle. And you have to start to question, especially this week, given the state of wide receivers, which we'll talk about in a second, like when is this going to change? When are we going to start seeing the fantasy points that we all would like to see scored happen?
And when I'm pretty sure that Kirk Cousins, Shedeur Sanders, and Tyrod Taylor aren't going to be the ones that pull us out. The injuries, the offenses are bad. It's a really weird year because offensive performance is bad, but like we do have like these 5 or 6 like historically bad defenses, and I just feel like every week, like especially if you play DFS, it's just like gravitate to those teams. It's just like, well, what about these guys? These teams like are facing, like the Bengals every week, and we'll see what happens with the Cowboys going forward, like the Commanders, the 49ers, like now the Cardinals. And it's just like, well, at least we have those teams. Like the offenses will be good against those guys. It's like that's kind of where we've gone to, and then the rest of the games are just real low scoring. It was a rough week though. Again, I mean, we had the lowest touchdown rate last week in terms of passing. And that's where it is. Passing is really hurting. That's like where everything. That's why I brought up the quarterbacks. We had the lowest passer rating in a week last season. Teams had their second lowest completion rate, only better than the week before. What's funny too is we had the lowest sack rate in the NFL last week of the season too. It was just bad quarterback play, bad offensive play. I know there was like some wind games too. But yeah, it was rough, man. Points per drive are down, and if you play DFS, then it was a really down week in totality. So, hopefully we pick up. Go ahead.
But you say that, but then like I've had 2 pretty decent DFS weeks in a row in which I've had pretty high.
See if you get the right guys.
Well, that's the thing, and I've had pretty high scoring lineups, and it's still mostly break even. Like I had a 200-point lineup, and it's still mostly break even, and like an afternoon only because when you hit those games, if you're targeting, for instance, the 49ers and you had Jacoby Brissett and Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch and Trey McBride, right? Well, lots of other people get there as well because of just the way DFS works now with Sims and all of that stuff, that so many other people get there too. And you're like, you have to be perfect essentially. So it's one of those things where even if you get it right, even if you find those games, and like you said, very often those games are happening against the same kind of teams. We'll talk about Bryce Young and the Panthers here in a second as we get through this. But even when you find it, like, it's like, all right, well, I got it right. And I ranked pretty well in this tournament, and then I doubled my money, but who really cares, right? Like, that's kind of where we are with DFS. And it's just like, it's not fun anymore. Like, is it contentious to say that DFS isn't as fun as it used to be, because it feels like it's not as fun as it used to be? But
no, you're right. I think you're right, because that happened to like NBA DFS was like one of the first ones to like flip, where like people were just like, oh, we're playing, especially like if you started out in like cash game stuff, where they're like, oh, this is just 2v2, 3v3, that type of bit. And that's what's happened largely with the Sims, and just the accuracy of everything, right? And then players are better. I always tell people too, like this time of year, if you are in like week 12 and you just had a bad year, right? You know, like I still like football though, and there's 6 weeks of football left after this. Like, I still want to watch football and I want to be involved. And some people jump into DFS, especially for like the Thanksgiving slate. And I've recommended the last couple of years that people don't, and just like start playing player props if they're available to you. Like, you'll have way more fun live betting, doing player props. It'll be way more EV for your money. Like, you're not going to come in week 12 and not play DFS all year and just fire off some lineups and be like, well, I'm going to throw $100 in this week and see what it gets me. You're going to lose. You're probably going to lose it very quickly. But in player props, you're a lot more enjoyable and a lot more profitable for you. So I always encourage people now to move in that direction.
Well, you say a lot more enjoyable, and then Tyler Lockett doesn't get over on Monday night.
Hey, listen, you guys bookend. We had a great week of player props, and like mine were bad on the show, but like you guys opened the week betting Justin Fields overs and and you end it with Tyler Lockett over. It's like reap what you sow, gentlemen.
Hey, I had a great week. It's just that I needed to.
Yeah,
it's just that I needed to cut the legs out just a little bit by putting a little bit too much money on a Tyler Lockett over. But that's what the sickness is, Rich. You gotta embrace the sickness.
Well, wait till we get some AD Mitchell stuff this week, baby.
It's happening. I'm in. I've already put it in the props chat. Did you see I put it in the props?
No, but it's happening. I know it's coming.
We're there with AD Mitchell. Speaking of AD Mitchell, I'm not going to say is interesting this week, because I don't think that he's interesting this week, because I just think, against that Ravens team, I'm just like, we're not chasing that. But I do think that, you're going to be digging deep at wide receiver this week, based on kind of the wide receiver Armageddon that we have right now. So Jalen Waddle is on bye, Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, Cortland Sutton, for whatever that's worth, Troy Franklin, for whatever that's worth, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin obviously is on bye, but we haven't had him. Hopefully we get him back after the bye. But then you go and look at Jamar Chase is out, Drake London is out, Marvin Harrison is out, and that's not even counting all the wide receivers that are on, injured reserve.
That we've already lost.
So like, there's so many wide receivers out. And so I went through your rankings and I just picked out some names. I don't disagree with these names, but I think it's just interesting where they are on the list. So Michael Wilson's your wide receiver 18. Romeo Doubs is wide receiver.
Might be too low.
Exactly. You might be low. Romeo Doubs, wide receiver 21. Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver 26. Kayshon Boutte, returning from injury, we're pretty sure, wide receiver 30. Trey Tucker, the bane of my Monday existence, because it wasn't Tyler Lockett. Trey Tucker, wide receiver 33. Like, that's the week it is. It's going to be an interesting week for wide receiver.
Yeah, man. It's like you said, I pulled it up. I wrote it in the opening of the worksheet, but if you looked at like preseason ADP, like, we're literally missing a third of the top 36 receivers that were drafted this week. Like, whether it be injury, bye, the suspension, it's rough. It's rough, man. And then we brought up like the passing stuff. So last week was the first week where it was only my second losing week in DFS all year. Not a humble brag, it was because I haven't banked anything either. It's just like you said, we're just profiting. But I tried to go against the grain, that like the meta of like this year. It's like, well, I want to play like old school. I want to get 3 awesome heceivers this week.
Yeah.
I was like high on JSN last week. We're going to get JSN, Jamar Chase. Maybe it's a Justin Jefferson week. We're going to jam him in. It's like, you have to play through running backs, man. The NFL right now, and we talk about this in the off season, like, it is just like the fantasy points are being driven through these top end running backs, and that's where we are. That's where the landscape is right now.
One of us learned that in the offseason and accepted it, and that was Rich, and he's doing better than
Well,
me,
I didn't learn it last week.
who didn't accept it. Well, fair. I didn't accept it, but I guess it's moving forward. We're going to have to accept that as we go.
And even these guys, like the awesome receivers, like JSN's having this like amazing year, right? But like in terms of like shadow realming you in terms of like weekly performance, he's just like consistently been really good. Like, last week
you say that Michael Wilson's what he had 158 yards last week. That was the
185. Yeah, that was the most. Yeah,
that seems to me wild that we haven't had anybody top that. But I guess it makes sense.
I mean, look at like JSN the year he's having, and in PPR leagues, he's hit 25 points just 3 times. Like he just constantly gets 20. Like you're just like popping 20s, and it feels like immaculate, and all his underlying metrics are immaculate too. But then you think about it like in terms of like overall fantasy points, like he's not even like threatening like the super seasons.
Yeah, no, it's really been an odd year. It's been strange. It hasn't been great for those of us who invested heavily at wide receiver early. Although I'll say, like, it's working out with Puka. I guess it's working out if you got JSN. But it's not. It's not been ideal. It's been a strange year. It's going to be an even stranger week. So let's get on and start talking about week 12. Before we do that, though, I do want to mention that, or I do want to introduce Warren Sharp. Warren Sharp's coming in for our Sharp Football Prize Picks for week 12. So make sure you check it out.
It's time for us to build this week's PrizePicks lineup and turn $100 into $600. PrizePicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports with their easy-to-use app. And now you can play $5 and get $50 instantly in lineups when you use code Warren after you download their app. All right, we are back again to build another PrizePicks lineup with you guys this week. As a reminder, PrizePicks is available in a lot of different states, including California and Texas. And if you want $50 in lineups instantly when you sign up, make sure you click the link below and you can get that. We're going to build a lineup with you guys today, and we're looking to turn $100 into $600. So let's dive right into it with the first player that we're adding to our lineup, and that is Travis Kelce. We're looking Travis Kelce more than 52.5 receiving yards. And you can see at PrizePicks, the last 5 most recent games are sitting right there on the screen. They're all in green. What does that mean? It means he's exceeded this number 5 straight weeks. And that's despite the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs have been in some of these games where they've done pretty well, in some of the games that they've done a little bit poorly, in some of these games that aren't close. And in addition, in some of these games where they've had all their shiny new toys come back to the team. Even despite all that and all the surroundings, Travis Kelce continues to go over this, but now you've got a great matchup here this week against an Indianapolis Colts defense that allows yards and targets to tight ends. And we think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to need to be throwing the football a little bit here. This game is going to be competitive, that the Indianapolis Colts are capable of scoring. And as a result, we're going to need the Kansas City Chiefs in a do or die desperation type game where they've got to have it, get whatever they can out of Travis Kelce. So we're going more than 52.5 receiving yards for Kelce. Next up, we're going Aaron Jones, more than 2.5 receptions. Now, if you follow me over at Sharp Football Analysis and you watch the podcast that we have, if you search Sharp Football Analysis, you know the podcast, you know that the best bet last week was Aaron Jones' longest rush over 12.5 yards. And he exceeded that on the first drive of the game. So obviously I was watching that game with a lot of intent because we had some other bets and props going on in that game. But which, by the way, we're now 10-1 on our best bets this year, looking to go to 11-1 this week in week 12. That being said, make sure you're tuning into that podcast as well. For this particular bet, having watched that game, I noticed you got Justin Jefferson, you've got all these other targets. Why is Aaron Jones being targeted 6 times? He had 3 catches. He was targeted 6 times. So I went back and looked at the week before. 6 targets again, only 3 catches. This is a game where the Minnesota Vikings are going to be playing on the road in Green Bay, hostile environment, as a 6.5-point underdog. They're probably going to be in a game state where they're going to need to be passing the ball a little bit more. And J.J. McCarthy has proved nothing other than the fact that he's highly erratic and has the lowest completion rate in the NFL. The best thing to do when you're trying to catch when you're trying to complete passes is to throw the pass to somebody standing as close to you as possible. That's probably going to raise your completion percentage. That's where a running back comes in play. That's probably why they have thrown 6 targets each of the last 2 weeks to Aaron Jones. I believe if they throw 5 to 6 to him this week, he'll probably hit 3 catches again, and therefore we're going more than 2.5 receptions. Last but not least on the card, got Adonai Mitchell of the New York Jets. This one is the exact opposite of Travis Kelce. Remember how Travis Kelce's little card had all the green at the bottom? This card has no green. He hasn't hit this number at all. You're betting on vibes here. You're backing AD Mitchell to have some vibes in this particular game. And the reason is because he's got a new quarterback. It's no longer Justin Fields. And we believe that we're going to see a higher ceiling with their passing attack this week in a game last week where they threw a ton of targets to AD Mitchell. The problem is half the targets from Justin Fields weren't accurate. Half the targets were dropped because that's what AD Mitchell does. So hopefully with a new quarterback situation, but still a desire to throw him the football, he will be able to hit this number. He does draw a lot of deeper targets. So it might only take 1 catch, maybe 2 to get him to 29 receiving yards. And in addition, they're 13.5 to 14-point underdogs. So they're going to roll out of bed in the morning, put their feet on the floor, losing this game most likely. They've got nothing to do but probably have to throw the football here to try to keep pace. And I think that they're going to be able to get AD Mitchell more than 28.5 receiving yards. So that's our card this week, our lineup of 3. We're looking to turn $100 into $600. If you want to take this journey with us, we like these. Go ahead and ride with us over at PrizePicks. Click the link in the description below, and you can get on board, and you get a nice bonus when you enter as well. So make sure that you sign up today. Good luck.
All right, let's get to it. Agree or disagree, my favorite segment, Rich's least favorite segment, which as always makes it my favorite segment. And what I do is I throw out a name, an idea, a statement, and Rich either has to agree or disagree with that statement. I'm going to get started easy here. I think this is an easy one for you. TreVeyon Henderson will remain the lead back, even with Rhamondre Stevenson expected back this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's just been too good. Well, obviously as an investment, too good to put back in the bottle. Just offer something that Rhamondre Stevenson doesn't. Not to say that Rhamondre Stevenson can't come back and have a role. I just think it's probably looking at a situation where you have this rookie comes on at the end of the season. It takes a while for these guys sometimes too, all right? Like to find it. And, like we did this with Jonathan Taylor, not as to the degree of this deep in the season with Jahmyr Gibbs, but the tide is shifting, I think, in TreVeyon Henderson's favor. The remaining schedule is really good too. Obviously we have Bengals this week, then Giants. He does have a week 14 bye as one of those teams. Then Bills, you get the Ravens and the fantasy week 16, and then the fantasy championship, at Jets, the team he just had 3 touchdowns against. So you feel pretty good about that, even if Rhamondre comes back and does pilfer some touches. He already has scored the last 2 weeks more fantasy points in the last 2 weeks than Rhamondre Stevenson has in any individual game of his career to this point. So yeah, and the interesting thing too is this team kind of really isn't built to run. Even TreVeyon Henderson, the underlying metrics the past 2 weeks haven't been great because his offensive line's not really good. They don't create a lot of space for running backs. So you need this guy that can get something after the tackle, create explosives, and yeah, I just believe that he will be the lead back moving forward.
And get involved out of the backfield, which we've seen more of, which you definitely need. You definitely need more of that. What I will say is, regardless of what happens from a usage perspective this week, you're obviously very interested in playing Henderson against the Bengals because they're that bad. Our friends over at Fantasy Points do this where they compare, what a defense is given up versus the baseline average for that team for the week, which I think is a very good way of doing strength of schedule and stuff like that, or how good of a matchup it is. And over the last 5 weeks, the Bengals are giving up 13.3 more fantasy points than a backfield's average entering the game. The next worst team is Atlanta at 7.9. So we're talking about a massive difference how bad this defense is, which means to your point, even if Stevenson comes back and gets 10 to 12 carries, you could even play Stevenson this week. I think that even that is viable in a deeper league as a flex, just because of how good this matchup is. I am very interested with Henderson. It seems like they figured out how to use them. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah, more
but just
outside stuff. Yeah.
absolutely more outside stuff. So over the last 4 weeks, 41 of his 57 runs have been outside runs at 72%. Over the first 7 weeks, it was 19 of 43, which was 44%. So they've really increased that rate. For the season, he's averaged 5.9 yards per carry to the outside and 3.3 yards per carry on inside runs, which again makes sense based on what we thought about him coming out as a prospect. So I'm big. They figured out how to use him. We're going to get Stevenson back, so they're not going to have to use him like as much in the middle even there. I think he's going to keep getting usage. I think he can keep getting receiving work. We're still in on Henderson, especially this week. And it is nice that you get to throw that dart at Henderson this week with the Bengals, that even if he does go back to like 10 touches, right, that you're still feeling okay, that he can get a long run, maybe find the end zone. And then we can kind of figure it out after that as we move forward.
Yeah, they said Giants the week after that. Like, it's funny, every time I write out the Giants, you forget that like they're actually metrically the worst run defense in the NFL. And then he comes out of the bye and has the Bills, who, listen, I'll meet you at Goldie's after the season. The Bills just like, yeah. So like you have 3 in a row. Like even if Stevenson's like more involved than we even really want, you still haven't them from a matchup perspective. You're like, well, at least Bengals Giants, like you figure the Patriots are going to be in control of those games. They're going to be in run scripts anyways. And then the Bills matchup is so good enough that it's like, well, he can get there anyway. So it's like, even if Stevenson has more work than we want, the matchups are so good.
Yeah, no, we're still in. Let's keep it rolling. All right, my next one, I feel bad about this one. I don't like this one at all because it feels so point chasey, but I think that it's right. So I'm just going to say it. Bryce Young is set up to have another productive fantasy day.
Yeah, I agree. And I was actually expected to be more bullish until I did his write-up, but I do agree. We need Dave Canales to believe is what we need.
Please throw the football. Yeah.
I was surprised. Like, I was like, oh, like, because my initial thought was, you heard some stuff about like how Tet McMillan did good. I've been writing about Tet McMillan for weeks. Like, target shares there, air yards are there. Like, they don't throw. They don't throw. Like, what are you going to do? Like, we can only use those things like target share and like share of air yards to a degree. Like we did this with Garrett Wilson for like years, right? And it's just
we're
like,
doing it with DK Metcalf now. Like
correct. Yeah. That's a good example. DK Metcalf. It's like, well, they're not throwing. Like it doesn't matter. And they finally like had a bunch of dropbacks. It's cool. It's like, oh, I can't wait to see like, what their pass rate and stuff was. And they actually were still below pass rate expectations last week. And then they were 10% below pass rate expectations on first downs. They only averaged 2.8 yards per carry on first downs last week. And they still overly ran it. And it's just like, come on, Carolina. Like, dude, on first downs, last week, Bryce Young was 11 of 14, 215 yards. He averaged 15 yards per pass attempt on first downs. And they averaged 2.8 yards a carry, and they still ran it more. It's like, come on, Dave, believe. And I understand that some insulation because of Bryce Young's career history at this point. But this would be another matchup. Like, you totally want to swerve into the pass against the 49ers. Or one, they can't touch a quarterback right now. Like there's just like a firewall. Like they might as well even have a defensive line. They're like running 7-on-7 drills. They might as well just drop 11 dudes back at this point and see what happens. But Jacoby Brissett had 57 dropbacks last week. Didn't take a sack. He only had a 17% pressure rate. Like they can't even like luck box into a sack on 60 dropbacks. Over the past 9 weeks, they're dead last in the NFL in pressure rate, dead last in sack rate. They've had more than 2 sacks in games since week 2. And over the past 7 weeks, they've allowed a 70% completion rate, 29th league, almost 8 yards per pass attempt, just 25th in touchdown rate. Like this would be a spot. Like they're not running the ball 2 weeks in a row now. They didn't run it against the Saints 2 weeks ago as well. Like give it, like you got some confidence. Your quarterback just threw for 450 yards. Like go let him like be a little aggressive here. Like this would totally be a spot for Carolina to lean into the pass. I hope they do it. But we need him to stay with the drop back game.
I had a bit of a different cutoff point for the 49ers defense than you when I was researching it. And it was because of just the teams that they face. So I went back to week 7. And week 7, they've played the Falcons, Texans, Giants, Rams, and Cardinals. And if you look at those 5 teams, we would give them one good offense. The Rams are definitely good, right? Do we give them another good offense for like half of Giants, half of Cardinals? Is that like, you know what I'm saying? We're not talking about like a great run of offenses they've played. We're not talking about a great run of pass protection either when we're talking about that with the Falcons injuries, with the Texans offensive line, a Giants offensive line.
Yeah, I wrote about it last week with Arizona coming in because Brissett was literally the most pressured quarterback for like the previous month.
Exactly. So like, over that span against those teams, and we could, the Rams are the outlier there,
Yeah.
but even with those other four, the 49ers are still dead last in pressure rate over that span. They're allowing 2.48 points per drive, 5.9 yards per play. Those numbers rank 24th and 27th over that span. And again, these are against offenses, aside from the Rams, that you're not particularly scared of. The Giants with Jackson Dart, it's been better. Cardinals with Jacoby Brissett, it's been better. But like, we're still not talking about like these are elite offenses, and that's what's happening to them. And that's what I think gives you more hope. Again, if Dave Canales does open it up. The other part of that I'll say, though, is we've seen two big passing games from Bryce Young this year, and they were forced into both of them.
Yes.
With what we saw from Brock Purdy last week, this again could be the kind of game where they're forced into it. And obviously there was some odd things that happened at the beginning of that game that allowed the 49ers to get up, what was it, 13 points in like the first.
I would love to
4
know
minutes.
how many NFL games where the first play of the game was a 1-yard touchdown.
Yeah, it was strange. It was interesting. But so like there were obviously factors at play there, but the 49ers offense looked great with everybody back healthy. You would expect them to continue to be
another
good.
team that has a great schedule the rest of the way out.
And they, like, with Brock Purdy healthy and with everybody healthy, they've just been good for 3 years in a row now. So like we have a long way of, like, we know.
And now the defense is bad. That's the bummer with the 49ers when you look at their schedule, because you have Panthers this week, then they go at Cleveland, by Titans, and it's like, man, we want the bonanzas.
Yeah.
And like, we can Browns Titans get us there.
that does probably make you, like, if you're a Panthers fan, you feel better about Bryce Young, that we're at least entertaining the idea that
because like we won't even be like excited for Cam Ward.
No, not at all. It'll probably be Dylan Gabriel back, right? Unless Shedeur loses his mind this week. So yeah, we're not getting into that. But yeah, I do think, like, it feels really point chasey, and that makes me feel like an absolute.
I mean, Tet's the guy. Like, you're like, all right, like
we're in
on him, and then it's the rest of the dudes. You're playing Dowdle because the volume, but we have guys like, someone might have looked at Xavier Leggette's box score and be like, I need a dude this week. Like,
Xavier Leggett might be brought up later. I'm just throwing that out there. And it's not about the box score. I have other reasons for Xavier Leggett. We might throw that out there later. You're gonna be so upset. You're going to be upset at thinking anybody I picked. I was going to try to sell you Iosivas this week, but I know how you feel about Iosivas. Rightly feel. I want to be clear about that. How you rightly feel about Iosivas. All right, let's. You
just like to say Iosivas.
I do love to say his name, and I like him. He's fun, right? He catches touchdowns. So, that's
most athletic guy that's in the history of the NFL that can't get open. Like, he's like a Greek god. Like,
it's not ideal that he can't get separation.
But like you would think that this dude is like, he runs like a 4.6 or something. Like, he's like an all-world athlete.
Just, it's not working out. But that's fine. It's fine. He's gonna get targets this week. That's all you should know about Iosivas, or maybe Penn State legend Mitchell Tinsley. So keep your eyes open for Penn State legend Mitchell Tinsley. All right, one more here.
And Penn State legend Mike Gesicki, right?
If Mike Gesicki, all right, let's talk about that part. So Mike Gesicki's full on Wednesday. Like, they need a receiver. Jamar Chase is out. We obviously saw when T. Higgins was out last year what happened with Gesicki. This is a different situation, obviously, because it's Chase out. So I'm not really sure.
Well, and Noah Fant is still there.
They have so many tight ends now. Like, Fant is there, Hudson is there, Sample is there. Like, I don't think it's going to happen for Gesicki, but I guess it is worth noting that Gesicki is back. So I guess that's something we need to know. So there you go. Or at least it seems like he's going to be back. We'll see what happens later in the week. All right, one more here. The swap to Tyrod Taylor will create some usable fantasy assets in the Jets passing game. I promise you, we're going to talk about A.D. Mitchell. So here we are. Agree or disagree?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's like,
what's usable mean?
I mean, but also, like, they're the guys they're giving like run to are like John Mechie and A.D. Mitchell, like, who, sure, like, we'll see what happens, but like, it's not like these guys have been like, they're more promised than anything, right? That's the issue, and we'll see if Garrett Wilson ends up coming back at some point this season. But A.D. Mitchell is another one of these guys. Like, he is super interesting. Like, I think he's even interesting this week if he's going to get run. It's just like, this guy he does everything that you want a wide receiver to do up until the point, like, where the football's like on him.
Yes.
Even
he and Dontavian Wicks, man, kings of the, we earn targets, but it probably is not going to work out. They're kings of it.
Dude, I mean, he leads all wide receivers, like Puka Nacua, any dude that you want to name in target per out run against man coverage since last year. Like he came into the game on Thursday, first game with the team, and was targeted on 56% of his routes against man coverage and Christian Gonzalez. And it was like getting open on Christian Gonzalez, like open. Yeah, he's been targeted on 42% of his career routes against man coverage. Like he wins in coverage, and just like gotta catch football, man. Like he had 3 drops on Thursday. That's the life we live. He's facing a very man-centric defense again this week. He's a target earner. Just got to catch the football. But yeah, Tyrod is a little more functional, I guess I would say. It's just like we're taking flyers on guys that, like, how many people picked up John Mechie this week? Like, you know, it's so I don't know how many people are like really excited for the answer.
Yeah, that's where I am. You're right about like this does set up okay for Mitchell. I just don't know how many points the Jets are going to score in general against this resurgent Ravens defense. But after that, and this is kind of the thing, I had Mitchell as an ad this week, and this is why. Because after the Ravens, they get the Falcons, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Saints, and then the Patriots again in week 17. That is a very good schedule. Like you said, we don't know when Garrett Wilson will be back, if he will be back. It seems like they planned for him to be back, but this is a completely lost season. So I doubt they're going to rush it to get him back. So there's at least opportunity there for A.D. Mitchell if he can continue to earn targets and earn playing time. There's an opportunity there for Mason Taylor, like in a TE premium league. He does have a pretty good target rate from Tyrod Taylor this year. It hasn't resulted in any like yards and usable opportunities, but like I guess if you're in tight end premium and get 1.5 points for a catch, that's useful for Mason Taylor. So I do think there could be options here, and frankly, this offense could just be more functional in these matchups that we want to attack, which is just not what we got out of Justin Fields. We just didn't have what happened on Thursday night just wasn't functional. And Mitchell played some role in that with drops and things like that, but it obviously wasn't all on Mitchell. And so that's ultimately what I'm banking on. We have something like a functional offense. They have good matchups. If you're in a deeper league, we're not talking about 10-team leagues here. If you're in a deeper league and you need a flex that Mitchell could provide that, or you're in tight end premium that Taylor can provide some value, that's kind of where I am when I say usable. Mm-hmm. But are you playing A.D. Mitchell at any point in 10-team league this year? I would bet on no.
Yeah, probably not. But he's 3,200 on DraftKings. You don't want to get into those.
I want him to have a bad week this week so he stays cheap, and then I can use him next week. Like I'm definitely going to be playing some A.D. Mitchell props though. That's going to happen, that I'm playing 80.
No, you're right. I mean, in the one start that Tyrod had the full game, I mean, he had 36 pass attempts, and, you know, Justin Fields has hit 30 twice all year, and once was the like the Cowboys comeback, like where they had this like throw a lot in the second half.
To be fair, that Taylor one was a comeback against the Bucs too, right?
Well, they're all going to be comebacks, to be fair.
Yeah.
But they just like willingly called 36 passes. They have not done that with Justin Fields very often this year.
They're all comebacks.
Even chasing points.
Story of the Jets season. The 2025 Jets, they're all comebacks. I think
they're all comebacks.
But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens as we get there. All right, let's move on and talk about a few of the interesting games this week. Before we do that, I do want to mention a promo code SAVE65. That's SAVE, the number 6, number 5. 65% off rest of season all access NFL Plus over at sharp.football. Make sure you go and take advantage of that deal. Get access to Rich's worksheet previews every fantasy relevant player, every game, every single week. Make sure you check that out. Also, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this, in your podcast player of choice or over on YouTube. If you subscribe on YouTube, turn on notifications. Make sure you get notified whenever our videos go live. The Friday episode of this podcast that does feature Rich, along with Ryan McChrystal, Joe Gibbs, and the one, the only Warren Sharp. Warren Sharp's gives out his best prop bet of the week on there. That bet is now 10-1 this season. It's been killing. It's been crushing this season. So make sure you are subscribed so you get access to that free bet. Rich normally gives out winners on that episode. Not so ideal last week, but that's fine. That's fine. Ryan's giving out winners. Joe's giving out winners. Talking about the refs.
I've only had 2 losing weeks, but last week was one.
It wasn't. There's a lot of bad luck involved.
Listen, week 11, we're on to Cincinnati.
We're on to Cincinnati for sure. There's bad luck. The Jaylen Warren beat, it was one of the worst. bad beats we've had this year. My man averaged 6.5 yards a carry or something like that. It's tough scenes. What are you going to do? But let's move on to talk about the game previews here. Again, we're going to talk about a few of the most interesting games. Every game is previewed on the site in depth. If we don't talk about one of your players that you're interested in for these games we're going through, that player is definitely mentioned in the worksheet over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. Make sure you go and check it out. Let's get started with the Colts at the Chiefs. Chiefs 3.5 point favorites. We got a 49.5 point total here. There are some injury concerns here for the Chiefs, and we're still waiting a little bit. Again, we record this on Thursday morning ish, and so we don't have a full injury report for the week. Isaiah Pacheco was a full participant on Wednesday, which is interesting, suggests he's going to be back this week. Xavier Worthy, though, was a DNP on Wednesday, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But my first question about that would be, does it really even matter with the way that they're using Xavier? Like, can Tyquan Thornton come in and just kind of pick up that slack? I think the answer to that's probably yes in this passing game, and so we'll see how much that matters. But I am very interested about the Chiefs passing game here. You had Patrick Mahomes listed as a trust. You expect this to be a bounce back, but also in your write up for this, you talked about how Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Colts, has done in the past against Mahomes some of the stuff that the Bills did against him as well. And I wonder kind of how you're measuring those two things against each other. Are we going to see what we saw against the Bills? Can the Chiefs make adjustments? Why is Mahomes still a trust if you have those concerns?
I mean, Mahomes this is the angry Mahomes game. To me, it's all about the pass rush, though. Like, this is why I actually think that the Colts may play more aggressive and play more man coverage, and that's because teams have had success doing that. The Bills went in the opposite direction, but that's kind of where Sean McDermott pulled that playbook from, was from Lou Anarumo's Bengals days. But the Bills got a ton of pressure with the 4-man pass rush in that game. The Colts have shown no evidence they can do that, especially without DeForest Buckner. So if they want to take that approach, I think they're going to get paper cut by the Chiefs if they try that. Now, Matt Nagy might try to do some stuff that we won't like, but that's the big difference, is I think if they take that approach. But we saw the week before, when they acquired Sauce Gardner the week head into Germany, they played their highest rate of man coverage in that game. Now they're coming out of the bye. They're also getting Charvarius Ward back.
Yeah.
So I do think that we could see more of an aggressive approach from the Colts as well. Mahomes, and they've struggled because they don't have the guys that beat man coverage. And that's why, Mahomes is 22nd in completion rate against man coverage, 27th in yards per pass attempt. But I don't think the pass rush will be there. And I just think that this is a game where the Chiefs come back and at home, everything's lined up. He's averaging 26 flat fantasy points at home this year. I just think this is a Chiefs spot where they kind of come back and bounce back. So I'm going against the grain, a little more not evidence-based, but this is a spot where I believe they come back. You got Daniel Jones against the Steve Spagnuolo defense on the road. I think the Chiefs are actually going to be in a good spot here to win this game, but there are some intriguing underlying notes of this game that I think are be interesting to see how it plays out.
You brought up one of them with, obviously we get Sauce Gardner coming off the bye week, and so he's going to be, in a much better position they were on bye last week, right? Am I remembering that right? For some reason that seemed wrong in my brain as soon as I said it. But anyway, so he's had time to work on the defense, learn the defense more. You mentioned Charvarius Ward coming back. Those two on the outside, that is a very, very formidable duo at corner. But you look at kind of the numbers for the Colts, and outside has not really been their concern this year. It's been more of a slot issue. The Colts have given up. I think it's 7.9 yards per target to the slot. They faced 120 slot targets this year, which obviously they're going to face a lot of pass attempts in general because they have been up a lot this year, but that's the third most. And so I am interested to see kind of how they do that. Do we get Ward moving into the slot, Gardner moving into the slot more? Neither has really done a ton of that, but are we going to see more of that, especially since Rashee Rice is the person you're going to want to, shut down, I would say, especially if Xavier Worthy's out. Rashee Rice doesn't run even the majority of his routes from the slot, but we get 40 to 50% of his routes in there. If he can get involved in there, he's been better in the slot. He has a target on 37.5% of his routes from the slot. That matches up really well with this matchup. And so I'm very interested to see kind of what they decide to do and how they decide to play defense with both Ward and Gardner. And I think, to your point, there could be a lot more man here just because they have the guys to do it. They have the bodies to run it if Ward and Gardner are on the field and healthy.
And if they do, then like you hopefully would see some Rice inside, but it's going to be, I believe it's going to be a pretty solid Travis Kelce spot this week for the reasons that you kind of alluded to. And then the Colts have been kind of vulnerable in the middle of the field and against tight ends in general. I mean, they've only faced really two good fantasy tight ends this year, Trey McBride and Rhamondre Stevenson, and they got destroyed by both of them. So like I do think, and Kelsey's had the juice. Like, we were kind of wondering, when Rice came back, like, is this going to be a spot where, because at that point of the year, obviously the whole passing game was kind of meandering and Kelsey was kind of meandering, and like he's been strong. Like, I mean, since week 5, he's second in yards per out run against tight ends. Over that span, only Trey McBride has more receptions and yards than Kelsey. He almost won them the game last week too. So yeah, I think this is a spot where I think it's a vintage Kelsey game.
Yeah, it's definitely a good spot for him, especially if you want to play Mahomes, you want to play against the grain. If I'm stacking, Kelsey is definitely part.
And everyone's playing Trey McBride again in DFS. So,
which, by the way, fair. Like we're gonna say fair.
I had that note in the worksheet. Since week 6, only Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey average more fantasy points per game than Trey McBride.
Yeah, it's he's doing all right. He's doing okay for a tight end. I wonder, that actually is going to be interesting if this continues, because we had that run in which the people that took Trey McBride and Brock Bowers in the second round. Brock Bowers isn't working out, but Trey McBride, like it wasn't going so well, but now it's going so good. I wonder, people that sneak Trey McBride teams into the
he's still on Bengal stacks. We know that.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know what Trey McBride's advance rate is right now, but it's going to be interesting.
It's probably solid at this point.
I would hope so. I would hope so. All right. On the other side, you mentioned that you think this could be a tough game for the Colts. Daniel Jones against Spagnuolo on the road, obviously outdoors. So we're worried about that. I like to talk about Alex Pierce here because, everybody probably knows by this point how much I love what Alex Pierce is doing this season. But you think this could be a tough game for him specifically based on, so if you went out and picked him up on waivers, which I still think you should have done, they're going to be good games for Alex Pierce.
You're probably still starting him too, to be honest.
Well, this week, yeah, I didn't add his name to the list, but you have him like wide receiver 32 or something like that, which again I think is fair. But this might not be the spike week for Pierce, right?
Yeah, no, it depends really kind of what they look. And I always do a caveat. I try to bring up the stuff when we go under the hood for like some of these matchup based things in terms of like coverage. Like this is to date stuff. That doesn't mean necessarily, especially a guy like Steve Spagnuolo, like he could call a totally different defense. Yeah. It's something to always keep in mind with this stuff. I feel like we're still like the fledgling slate where this analysis has started to like really been incorporated. And, I do it too, but like you do have to remember that at any point, like a team can adjust. Like the Steelers have been a great example of this. We went forever on dunking on the Steelers, like those 2 games they faced the Bengals and the Packers. And it's like, oh my God, they're not even changing their game plan. In the last 3 weeks, they've just run completely 3 different game plans. They've all pretty much worked. You can throw an asterisk on the Chargers game, but like I would just say their offense did absolutely nothing that game too. Like they were okay. They were okay on defense. So keep that in mind, like to date, especially their guy Steve Spagnuolo. But
well, there are lots of examples. Like the Ravens defense sticks out. We're going to talk about the Cowboys here later on, and if we're going to have to adjust for the Cowboys defense. But that's why whenever I think about matchups, that's why that last 5 weeks filter is that's the number for me. I want to look at the last 5 weeks. If you're looking at individual teams, you're trying to identify change points, right? You can identify a change point with the Steelers. You can identify a change point with the Ravens. You can identify, we'll see moving forward, when the change happened for the Cowboys as they got healthy and obviously made some trades. But yeah, like you need to look at recent past because, and you make this point every offseason, it seems, so much of fantasy is about pockets of production. And that's also true for defenses because defenses are going to change. These guys are paid a lot of money to figure out how to solve problems. And if they have a problem, the defensive coordinator is not just going to sit on his hands. Well, good defensive coordinators aren't just going to sit on their hands and keep doing the same thing. We've seen some defensive coordinators do that, but good ones aren't going to just sit on their hands and do the same thing. They're going to try to change what they're doing. They're going to try to find something that works. They're going to try to improve the areas of concern and where teams have been attacking them. And maybe that opens up other areas, but it's going to take a little bit for that to be, figured out. Most offensive coordinators aren't going to be able to figure that out at halftime. Again, the good ones might be able to, but so it's always this this back and forth of between these guys. And it's not just season to season, as we've seen with this meta change over the last like 3 years or so. It's game to game for a lot of these teams. So you always have to be cognizant that what was a good matchup might not continue to be one. And I think the Colts are actually a good example of that as we're getting Ward and Gardner
Yeah,
back.
it's going to be different. Yeah.
There was a time where, you would say, all right, I kind of like the game environment and attacking this Colts secondary, as they were really hurt at one point in the season. And that's probably gone too. So it's just, again, just continuing to pay attention to those things.
Yeah, and I always bring it up too, and especially in the worksheets, like the teams that are static. Like we do have a few teams that like this is what we do and we live and die by, right? Like the Raiders, been Patrick Graham, like exactly what they're going to do. If they don't blitz man coverage, like they're just playing like static cover 3, like it's all they do. The Panthers are another team, like just plays like they stay in this is what we do defensively. Raheem Morris is another guy. Like they largely just this is what we do. The Chiefs are interesting, and the Buccaneers are interesting too, because like both of these teams have remained aggressive, but they've adopted a little bit of like the Brian Flores philosophy. Like they're still blitzing, but they're playing more coverage behind blitzing. Typically, like a lot of times when you would hear like a team blitzes a lot, you're getting man coverage with that blitz. And the Chiefs and the Bucs like are still applying pressure, but they're playing a lot more zone and too high behind it. And that's where the Chiefs have been this year. They're 6th in the rate of too high coverage. And that's been like more of a signal for Michael Pittman, less of a signal for Alec Pierce, which totally makes sense, right? Like you get single high, one safety, like we're going vertical. Yep. Alec Pierce is a vertical guy.
Sideline. Yep.
Yeah. So it totally tracks it. Like he takes a hit when against these too high looks. And then the other thing I always bring up too, and we talk about these matchups too, and I talk about we've talked about this like the man coverage stuff. Like that's only a percentage of routes in the game. Like it doesn't mean that like there will not be man coverage. There will not be plays where there are not single high calls in the game where he can win. And at wide receiver, you only need to win maybe 1 rep for fantasy football. Or 2 or 3 reps to have a good fantasy game. So keep that in mind as well too. But he has only been targeted on 13% of his routes against too high looks, 1.38 yards per out run. Also, the Chiefs have been really good in like defending the vertical pass in general, no matter what their coverage has been. They've allowed 0 touchdowns to wide receivers on throws 20 or more yards downfield, and they're 9th in completions allowed on those throws. Like that's where Alec Pierce is making his money this season still. He's had a little more nuance this year, which has been nice. He's upped his bag. Like he's going to get paid this offseason. Like you guys better be ready for Alec Pierce to get like $18 million like a season. Like that's happening this offseason.
It's going to be fun when everybody freaks out. Like the Darius Slayton contract always sticks out to me as people freaking out. But like to your point, when we're talking about the highest man rate teams in the league, we're talking about 45% of snaps. Like that's what we're talking about. We're talking about like the highest middle close rate. We're talking about 70%. So there's still 30% where we're middle of the field open, right? And so that's why I said you're still starting him. Like you would use like these type of like micro like analysis is like where you would apply to like DFS and player props.
But
or
like,
if you happen to have like if you just happen to not be part of the wide receiver apocalypse of this week, if you just happen to have 4 or 5 good options, then that you would play it there. But like I'm in a situation in Scott Fishbowl where I'm just playing Alex Pierce. There's no opportunity for me to play anybody. It's Alex Pierce or Tyler Lockett. It's not a question. Exactly. We're playing Alex Pierce. Like that's where we are. So
yeah, I mean you look at it, hey, top down, high game environments here, the highest total of the week. Like you just throw it at the wall.
And he needs 1 catch, like you said. If he gets 1 catch for 60 yards and a touchdown, all right, we're gold. We're moving on. We're on to
Tyler Warren, I think, is really interesting in this matchup because I wrote about it a couple times. The way that Colts operate is like really kind of how you look at how Tyler Warren's production is. So like the Colts are an interesting team because they have Jonathan Taylor, but they throw to get ahead and then just use Jonathan Taylor to just crush games. Like we're going to come out, use the threat of the run to establish the pass because they have a real high drop back rate early in games. And then they just close you out with Jonathan Taylor. Well, that's been like massive for Tyler Warren because if you watch the Colts, like he gets all like RPO play action targets. And when he got just like erased in the Pittsburgh game, that was the game where like they had a game script where it was like all hell is out. They were in their first negative game script of the year. And Tyler Warren took a significant hit because all of his stuff is predicated off of the play action RPO game. And when that got removed from the offense, all the stuff he was getting was gone. So you're on the road against the Chiefs. Do we get in a spot where they have to abandon that game plan? And like, does he have a little more fertility this week?
Yeah, it's interesting. And then the Taylor part of it too, like we've mentioned, if they're not able to get into that and we don't get second half Taylor, as happened to him on a couple occasions recently, then we're not getting like the click the button DFS play, right? And so there
He
are
averages 7.5 yards per carry in the second half of games.
that seems pretty good. That seems that seems okay. All right, much more about this game. Again, this is such an interesting game. Much more about that over at the site Sharp Football Analysis. So go and check that out. Let's move on to another good game, another interesting game. This one not on the DFS main slate because it's on Sunday night. That's the Bucs at the Rams. Rams -7, which again is on the surface you go, that's a big number, but then you think about it, you go, you know, we're probably right based on what these two teams have been doing. 49.5 point total. As always with the Bucs, we have the injury questions. Bucky Irving limited again on Wednesday. I believe he was limited again on Thursday. I believe that one's already come through as of time of recording. Again, we record this on Thursday, like mid-morning ish. We think he's going to play, right? And if he does play, then like we're just getting the rug pulled on Sean Tucker again, our one true king. Awesome.
To be fair, that was probably going to happen to us anyways.
That's the thing. We've seen this with Sean Tucker before, right? Get the pull. Also, like the thing with Sean Tucker last week, it was just a great matchup against the Bills. That has turned into a thing we attack. We'll see what happens on Thursday night with Woody Marks, and if that continues with even Davis Mills as quarterback. But we'll see what happens. But we've seen the rug pulled on Sean Tucker. It is what it is. But like even if he's not back, like what do we see happen? What's the game state here? Does that fit better for Rachaad White? This is not a good matchup this is the complete opposite of the matchup they had from a running perspective of last week. So I do think even if Bucky Irving doesn't return, there's going to be a lot of disappointed people in what we get out of Sean Tucker this week. So just take your 1 week and be happy, right?
Yeah, you got to, the thesis last week was never that we've always thought Sean Tucker should be getting more touches.
Yeah, like we just want him to go somewhere where he can get carries. You know what makes me sad though is I've had so many of those players on like dynasty rosters.
Yeah,
and it just never works.
All of us have. Yeah, all of us have.
It just like Khalil Herbert is still in my heart. Probably still on a few dynasty rosters. Still in my heart, Khalil Herbert, and it never worked out. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, on the road against the Rams, who are 4th in yards per carry to running backs, 8th in rushing yards per game. They are 3rd in fantasy points allowed touch to running backs as well. And it's not a spot where they'll kind of let you run. Like, they were willing to let Seattle run. It's funny, both teams, were telling the other team to run last week. It's so fun because that matchup was such a mirror match on both sides.
Yep.
I do think it does. I do think that game revealed more about the Seahawks than it did the Rams because the Seahawks were like, the Seahawks came out and were like, well, we're going to play dime so you can come out of your 13 personnel. But the Rams were like, cool, we'll just go to 11 and throw to Puka Nacua. Like they had that bag where like Seattle, like the Rams took away what Seattle did and Seattle had no pivot. Like they're like, oh, we don't, like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Like they're like, that's what the 13 personnel stuff with the Rams has done is they've given them another wrinkle. But if you try to just force the Rams to go back and play 11 personnel, they're still really good at that too. So
yeah, they actually get Puka Nacua on the field, and it turns out that he's one of, if not the best wide receiver in the league. So like, it's fine. Like, so I can play Puka Nacua on 90% of the snaps instead of 70% of the snaps. All right, that seems like a win for me as well. Like that seems like a good thing.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the injury to Tyler Higbee, if that has impact, if they reduce any of the 13 personnel stuff. I still think they'll incorporate it because they were playing 4 of those guys. That they're rotating kind of all 4 guys in. So I still think to a degree it'll be a part of it. I don't think we'll see Todd Bowles defend it the same way Mike McDonald did. They've only faced 4 dropbacks against 13 personnel this season. The Bucs, like we can't go anything off that sample. They have faced 62 dropbacks against 12 personnel. And they've just gone base defense against the 80% of those snaps, nickel only 19%. So I think if the Rams do go heavy, we'll see Todd Bowles counter it with heavy personnel and then fall into that trap to where they can get some shot plays. But if they do reduce it, I mean, it's we'll get Puka Nacua back to being kind of that ceiling play. He's still been awesome. It's just chipped away at the amazingness that we were having with him because, if you haven't heard, I wrote about last week. It wasn't just me. A lot of people have talked about this, but like when the Rams play these multiple tight end sets, like they're removing Puka Nacua from the field. I mean, he He didn't play any of those snaps last week on 13 personnel. And it's just like, if you look at his box score, you can clearly see it. He was all double-digit target games, except for one, until they started incorporating this heavily. And now he's still getting 7, 8, 9. But, we're not getting 12, 13, 14 targets. And it just chipped away his ceiling. Efficiency, everything on a per route basis has been there for him. But so if they do reduce that, it's just going to get back and unlocking him to that high upside wide receiver. But the Rams do everything the Bucs are really bad at defending, and the Bills took advantage of it last week. Stafford leads the league in snaps under center. As a byproduct, it leads the NFL in play action rate. And when the Rams do play under center, he has an 82% play action rate. And the Bucs have just really struggled against these teams that play conventional offense. Under center, they're 20th in completion rate allowed, 31st in yards per pass attempt allowed. They all have the highest yards per completion against under center passes, 19th in touchdown rate. Against play action passes, they're 31st in passer rating allowed. Josh Allen was 5 of 8 under center against them, 6 of 9 using play action. And then Stafford's been awesome against the blitz this year. So everything that the Bucs really do well, the Rams are really good at exploiting. And then you have the one wild card too on top of it all is if the Bucs don't have Jamel Dean, he has been absolutely awesome. He's been a great year for them. He took a pay cut to stay there too this year and has been like a vital part of their defense. But they faced 124 pass attempts with Jamel Dean off the field this year. They've had the highest touchdown rate in the league on those, 31st in yards per pass attempt, 28th in completion rate. If he doesn't play, that's a huge problem for them.
So start Matthew Stafford is what I just heard through all of that. We're playing Matthew Stafford. But yeah, I was going to just ask you to list off all those stats if you didn't, because all of those stats that you had in the worksheet preview, again, available, Sharp Football Analysis, go read it. It really is amazing the way that the Rams are matching up here against this Bucs defense.
Are they your if I made you pick a Super Bowl team today, how far teams do you get to the Rams?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I mean, they're definitely in the upper echelon. I don't think the Eagles, even though they just drive us wild, the Eagles are the new Chiefs, right? You're not going to like anything about it. And then they just end up in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, the defense is still good enough to carry.
Yeah. The Rams are definitely up there. I still think the Seahawks are very good and have a chance. And hopefully that Rams game gets them in the lab trying to figure out kind of what their counterpunch is, right? Trying to figure out what that is. So they're very good. The Lions, as they get healthier in the secondary, there are a bunch of teams in the NFC, in the AFC, obviously still the Bills. I really want the Ravens to make the playoffs because I'm very interested in what that looks like if they're coming into the playoffs as a 7 seed.
The AFC playoffs are going to be wild this year because we're going to have matchups that we typically wouldn't get to the later rounds, early. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of teams, but the Rams.
I guess we're still assuming that the teams that we're talking about get in.
That's the other part of it. Are the Ravens and Chiefs making the playoffs? Obviously the Ravens are in a wild spot, and we'll have to see what happens. But the Chiefs, I don't know if we're talking enough about.
Well, the Ravens have the out; they can just win the division and get in.
Yep.
They run down the Steelers, they're in. The Chiefs are not winning the AFC West for the first time in a long time, and then that makes things more interesting.
It's this Chiefs run, they have to win this Colts game. To your point about Mahomes you made earlier, they have to win this game. This is
that's just kind of why I'm leaning in on it.
That's
why I'm leaning in on Mahomes. I feel it's just like a spot. He's never lost 3 games in a row in his career. So.
You know what team I didn't bring up, which makes me deeply sad because I was so in on them before. I was very in on the Rams for the season. I tried to get us to push out Rams to win NFC West. If Matthew Stafford stayed healthy, I had every confidence that this team would be good. And this isn't even the best version of this team, I don't think. I think that they have a better version when their secondary gets healthier. Unfortunately, Quentin Lake just got sent to injured reserve. We'll see if it even ever gets healthier. But I do think there's a better version of this Rams defense than even what we've been looking at. And so obviously the Rams aren't a surprise to me. But I was also really high on the Packers and just their inability to beat teams they should beat by first of all, beat them in general, but pull away from teams.
Wait till this Vikings game is way closer than it should be.
It just drives me. They are so much more talented than what we've seen. And they've had injury issues and all that too. I understand, but the Packers are really driving me wild. We'll see what happens. I also didn't bring up the Bears. I apologize, Bears fans. I don't know how serious that 7-3 is, but hey, it counts. It counts. Those wins are on the board. They count. All right, let's move forward and talk about. Oh, I did want to mention Mika Ibuka has been down a little bit recently. You kind of wrote about it. We're just gonna
You
see what happens
you gotta
with
just keep
Godwin.
pushing. You just gotta
Yeah.
keep pushing.
We're just betting on target share at this point. When Godwin comes back, maybe that target share comes down. We don't know how much Godwin will play. Even if he does come back, he is practicing on a limited basis. We'll see what happens with him.
It's funny. There's always guys I want to like dock because of like performance, and then when you get to the rankings, you're just like, well, what am I gonna do, man? Like, like Buka's one of those guys like, well, I want to lower him. I was like that with Rhamondre for a while. Like I kept wanting to, like, I was like, this dude's like clearly like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, like in terms of where he should be. But then when you have to start listing guys and names, you're like, oh God, like you would play Rhamondre over this guy. And then you're like, oh, how did we get here? But I clearly view this guy as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for fantasy. It's like, well, wide receiver 18. Like, but that's why I've always railed against rankings. That's why I do the worksheet first before actual rankings.
Yeah, because it's just like there aren't 12 wide receiver ones. Like, it's that thing we hear about every NFL draft where they tell us, well, there are probably 20 round 1 prospects in here. And you're like, well, 32 are going. So I don't know what to tell you. But we've reached that with wide receivers for sure. All right, one more game to talk about here. I'm not going to make you spend too much time on this because I know talking about this team makes you break out in highs, but I do think we do need to talk about the Eagles at the Cowboys. Eagles 3.5 point favorites, 47.5 point total. Lane Johnson, I believe, is going to miss this game, which is I think
they said 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So this is going to be, that's a big deal for this offense.
And Cam Jurgens might miss this game.
That isn't more interesting because of kind of the stuff we saw with under center when he was out. So, we'll see. But Lane Johnson, I think, is definitely a big deal. You had some splits in the worksheet about Johnson and kind of what the offense does, especially what the running game does with him off the field. So I'd highly recommend you go and read.
Which hasn't been good already.
Yeah. I highly recommend you go and research or go and read the preview for this. I'm interested in the Dallas defense because obviously they played the Raiders, so we're not putting much into that. I do think people talked a little bit about like them getting pressure, and Quinnen Williams obviously had a really good game, but it's not like they were struggling. They were 9th.
They were always getting pressure.
Exactly. They were 9th in pressure rate over the first 10 weeks. So that was something they were doing already. So I don't know how much we're buying into that, but it wasn't just that they obviously got the new players in, which I do think those new players, Williams and Wilson, helped them against the run. I would say that fortified some places they need it. They also got healthier, which, with Overshown and stuff like that back.
Yeah,
and
Malik Hooker came back.
And so I do think there are reasons to believe that this defense is better than what we have seen. But like, does better mean middle of the pack? Like, what are we talking about here with this Cowboys defense?
And that's we're looking for them to have more quality opponents to give us more of a sample, right? And I don't even know if this qualifies, but at least there's star power here on the other side of the football. I mean, this Eagles offense is just pulling teeth every week, man. It's such an uphill battle. What was remember the first Blade movie? What is the quote? Like some efforts always trying to skate uphill. Like that's the Eagles offense. Like every week, man, it's just so hard. They don't do anything creative. Even kicked myself a little bit last week for it because I wasn't like bullish. Like I didn't even have the guys as trust, even though the man coverage splits were there, because they're not doing anything even against man coverage that like is fun. Even when they have these matchups, like it's just AJ Brown having to win either a comeback or like a 50-50 ball against man coverage. It's not like he's like, where are the chances in this offense? Like, have you seen an Eagles guy have any chance for like yards after the catch?
Your stats about hitch routes in the worksheet were just wild. About what is it? It's all 3 of their top wide receivers are in the top 10.
Yeah, so if you look at wide receivers that have run 200 or more routes this season, the Eagles have 3 guys in the top 10 and just hitch routes. Dotson's first, Devontae Smith second, AJ Brown's 10th. And then if you just look at go routes, Dotson's second, AJ Brown's 9th, and Devontae Smith is 17th. Like they don't do anything. Like the guy either catches the ball or the defender's a chance to make a tackle, or he wins like a contested catch, or gets behind the defense and then gets to run it. That's like, I can't remember the last time I saw an Eagles play where one of these guys was like in space, like running with the football.
And that's so much about what made AJ Brown special.
Yes.
Is that you get him onto these crossers. You get him like playing
He's
like
Terrell
Jameson
Owens.
Williams. Exactly. I said Jameson Williams. You said Terrell Owens. Yours is definitely more fair to AJ Brown. I apologize, AJ Brown, but I was thinking more modern. But you're right. We get him on these crossers and we let him go, right? We let him use his after
can't
catch
tackle
ability.
him.
Yeah, because he's big and fast, and like you just have to get him on these drags and on these crossers and get him moving horizontally across the field so he can make good plays. Or how many big plays have we seen AJ Brown just getting a slant and going, right? How many big plays have we watched him make through that? And maybe AJ Brown isn't that guy anymore, right? Like he's getting older, and we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, it does seem like they're not putting their guys in the best position to succeed week after week. And you have to wonder, is that an offensive coordinator situation? Obviously there's been some reports that the receivers are unhappy with Jalen Hurts. It seems like we get that report every single year with the Eagles, and then everything kind of figures it out and it works out. But it's just, it's just frustrating to what this team has too much talent to be doing what they're doing on offense. And it's frustrating.
Yeah. And the first time these teams played, like no one was really good. And that's the thing about the Eagles. They keep winning. And it's like you said, like you compared it to like a couple of those Chiefs teams that it's like, we're not getting anything for fantasy football for these guys. And the more frustrating part is at least those Chiefs teams, like they were kind of devoid of star power. This team has like legit stars, like dudes we want to be good for fantasy football. And we just kind of cut our teeth and we keep playing these guys. But yeah, and they keep winning these games. It's because we're going to get a ton of probably like, why would Matt Eberflus come out and play like a bunch of man coverage this game? Like,
doesn't make sense.
And so you're going to get a game where it's probably like a lot of static dropbacks against a bunch of teams trying to take away the first read that can get pressure, and you don't have Lane Johnson. The one Lane Johnson, there's more in the running game, but the one stat I thought that was telling with Lane Johnson is they average 4.2 yards per play with him off the field this year. And it's 150 play sample. Like it's not like 42 plays. I'm like literally like 3 games worth of plays, like 2.5 games. That would be only ahead of the Browns in yards per play. And like for a team that has this many good players to have any stat where they're tracking like next to the Browns and anything, like that's an indictment on the operation.
No, absolutely. And we're just mad because it's frustrating to watch. We just want them to be better. Like Devontae Smith's great. AJ Brown's great. Dallas Goedert can do stuff. Saquon Barkley obviously can do stuff, even if maybe we're not at the level we were last year. Let's just have. You know what? I just want everybody to have a good time.
My initial thought that this game's gonna get overplayed for DFS, but then you're just like, it's Dallas indoors. Look at all these dudes.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, because you'd be concerned about Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. But Pickens obviously wasn't involved as much in that week 1 game. And if you look at the box score for Dak Prescott, it wasn't great. But if you watched that game,
he played
Prescott
well.
Was amazing in that game. And obviously CeeDee Lamb had some drops that would have made that game a lot closer and would have won the game potentially for the Cowboys. Maybe we're having a different conversation about the Eagles season, right? But that seems to happen a lot. But yeah, so like, and then Jalen Hurts didn't throw to wide receivers basically at all in that first game. So yeah, we're a long way removed from week 1. And so a lot of things have changed, but you're worried, I guess, about CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens here, but you're also not running away from them because they both produced against Denver. And this team is not, you might run away from Jake Ferguson. This might be do you have somebody to play for Jake Ferguson week? But that's basically all we're looking at, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Eagles have been awesome, but like you said, you bring up I brought up the Denver games. Those guys had real solid floor games. I think the floor is still high for those guys. I think for DFS, the price points make those guys hard, especially Lamb. Like Lamb is very costly. Like we have not had a tournament score for him, is a score from him either. So it's just it's an interesting game.
Interesting. All right. More about that game, more about every game of this week available at Sharp Football Analysis. It's part of the worksheet previews. Make sure you go and check that out. Remember, you can get 65% off rest of season, all access, or NFL Plus. Those include those previews, those worksheet previews. So make sure you go and take advantage of that deal. Save 65. All right, let's move on. Our last one here, Uncut Gems. This is where we try to identify players who are on waiver wires or on benches in deep leagues that we think can outproduce expectations this week, put up a starting score. I'm on a decent run of these. Thanks to Greg George for getting into the end zone late last week and saving that one. I picked the wrong Arizona wide receiver, but it still ended up working out. Okay.
On DFS, we played them all, so it was okay.
Yeah, it was good. Although I did have my best lineup did have DeMarcado instead of Wilson, as I tried to get a little cute and that didn't go great. I hope your ankles are fine, D Mercado. But who do you got this week as your uncut gem, Rich?
I got a dust ball.
Oh no,
A dust ball. Are you ready for this?
let's hear it.
DeAndre Hopkins.
There we go, baby. We're in.
So just from a top-down stance, like Lamar in this passing game is running the two like pretty tough matchups and two teams that are good at defending like kind of what the Ravens are bad at on offense. Like a lot of like one thing in his career that's tried and true even under Monken. Like if you play cover zero and you get to Lamar Jackson with these man coverage blitzes, like that's like the one. I don't want to call it kryptonite. It's just it makes him mortal at least. And the Jets are a team that do play man coverage. They blitz out, but the thing is they're bad at it. They're really bad at it.
And this goes back to our previous conversation is when you're going into like these in-depth
Yes.
things, you have to also account for, well, are they any good at doing this? And the Jets are not good at doing it. So
yeah, and some people overly play this too for a team that is like really good at like man coverage, and they're like, hey, well, this guy's awesome at man coverage. I was like, yeah, but like that team's like that's what they do. They're like they've like the Broncos, right? You'd be like, hey, this dude cooks man coverage. I'm like, yeah, man, he's gonna go to Patrick Surtain though.
Yeah,
like,
does he cook Patrick Surtain? Is a much
like
more,
good luck.
That's a better question. Yeah,
but the Jets play a hyper aggressive defense and they're bad at it. The last time that Lamar Jackson faced a really aggressive defense that was really not that good as the Miami Dolphins, and he threw 4 passing touchdowns a game. So from a top-down stance, I believe that this is a good Lamar Jackson spot where he's going to have more efficiency than he's had the past couple weeks. And so I'm starting there if Lamar Jackson's going to be good. Like, so it's not going to be a situation where I think DeAndre Hopkins is good and he pulls Lamar Jackson up. It's going to be the inverse where Lamar Jackson is playing well and DeAndre Hopkins is going to piece this. So he ran a season high route rate last week with Rashad Bateman out. 71% of the dropbacks. He also had 31% of the team air yards. Zay Flowers was first, obviously. Hopkins was for the season now has been targeted on 26% of his routes against man coverage. He averages over 3 yards per route run. So this is a spot where I'm just like, if you need a dust ball to have like a touchdown, something, just make a play, he might dust it off. And DeAndre Hopkins, always one of my favorite players because like he dresses like a grandma. And I like that. He comes into the years, he's gonna come in. He's like an old lady. I love him.
Yeah, no, we're all big Duck fans.
Super dust ball
around these parts. Bateman did not practice Wednesday. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. This message will self-destruct if Rashad Bateman plays.
Yeah. No, we're expecting that. Is there any concern though about Lamar Jackson, missing again on Wednesday with the ankle? We're not concerned about him playing. He's going to play.
Yeah, I think him running around, you might be like, we might not ever. I don't know if we'll see the rest of the year the movement Lamar.
Yeah, that's my concern. Like you said, we've had 2 matchups here in a row where we would expect him to not be as good as he normally is, but we also have this injury layer to it. So I'm a little bit worried. Like, what does that look like? But we'll find out.
They said after the game that they had more designed runs in the game plan, that the Browns just took those away, but they could say that and not be true. So
absolutely. All right. As I hinted earlier, I'm going to do one that you're not going to be happy with, and that's Xavier Legette. Now, I want to be clear here that I have previously in the season, in the waiver wire column, cautioned against buying into Xavier Legette after a big game. And that has worked out for me so far this year. But there are 2 things this week, 2 different things. First, as we discussed with Bryce Young, this is just an absolutely great matchup for him. The game environment I expect to be good because I expect the 49ers to push enough for the Panthers to have to throw. And so I'm into that matchup, game environment, all of that. Second, Dave Canales said after the game that they made a focused effort to get Xavier Legette more targets. That is not something that he has said previously after these big games. Maybe it's just coach speak, but that at least gives you some confidence that we're going to see Legette continuing to get some of these targets, because playing time and running routes has not been the problem for Legette this year. It's just been getting targets in a low drop back team that has Teteroa McMillan there to, apparently he doesn't like Ted McMillan. So I'm trying to avoid that. Teteroa McMillan there to soak up all the targets. So those are my arguments for him. The other thing about Legette, and this is kind of gives you some insulation, is you always have the touchdown out with Xavier Legette. He leads a team with 10 end zone targets. He's played 2 fewer games than McMillan and still has 2 more end zone targets than McMillan. McMillan's sitting at 8 end zone targets. Legette is actually tied for 3rd in the league among wide receivers in end zone targets. Like, he has a ton of end zone targets, especially
Ted McMillan owners know.
Yeah, in the scope of like, he playing in the Panthers offense, the fact that he has 10 end zone targets as the secondary, at best, secondary receiver in a Panthers offense, like they really utilize him there. You always have that touchdown out. If we expect Bryce Young to throw touchdowns, there's a decent chance that Leggett ends up with one of those. Those are my arguments for Xavier Leggett. As you can tell, I'm apologetic about this, but I do think it feels points chasey. But again, I think that we continue to identify these defenses you want to chase. And I think the 49ers are defense you want to chase. Leggett's out there in a lot. I wouldn't be chasing Jalen Coker. That's not one that I would be chasing. But Leggett, I think, is one that you can chase here. So tell me I'm an idiot. Let's move forward.
No, go for it.
I guess you have no room to stand when you brought up DeAndre Hopkins, the year of our Lord 2025.
Hey, listen, bet on the spot, man. It's dark times here.
I want to be clear. I agree about DeAndre Hopkins. Like, I definitely looked at it. He was on my short list. If he's running routes, like, and it's a good matchup for Lamar, what are you going to do? The problem has been in the past, he hasn't been running routes, and now he is if Bateman's out. So that's it for us. Head over to Sharp Football Analysis. You can check out Rich's rankings over there. Be sure to peruse the wide receiver rankings. It's a really fun read for this week. Check out his rankings. Check out his worksheet previews. Again, every fantasy relevant player on every single team, every single game. That's over at Sharp Football Analysis. You can save 65% off rest of season all access or NFL Plus package. So make sure you check that out. Subscribe wherever you find us, podcast, YouTube. We appreciate it. And Rich and I will be back to talk with you. Actually, we won't be back to talk with you next week. Next week's Thanksgiving. We won't be back to talk with you next week. We'll be back to talk with you in 2 weeks, though. So make sure you enjoy those Thanksgiving games, and we'll talk to you later.